Hey, everybody. Apologies for the delay. Once again, welcome to this week's Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate the love. We are live. We are good to go. Talking all things Phils. Yes, they've been red hot, but there are some concerns. What could be for the squad? Sorry, a little echo in my headphones. What could be the Achilles heel for the squad as they get ready for a, hopefully for them, deep postseason run? If you looked at the thumbnail, you may already know where we're going with that. The offense has been hot. The starting pitching is being figured out. We have some injury updates to get to. We will be talking all about everything Philadelphia Phillies. But more importantly, we want to get to exactly what is going on with this club right now. So, again, if you were intrigued by the thumbnail, we want to get right into it. The Phillies, we've talked about how good their offense has been. And yes, there's been a little bit of a struggle as of late against starting pitchers. That has been talked about ad nauseum by folks. We will get into that a little bit deeper in the show because there's something that I wanted to talk about specifically. And I talked about it on Oscar's Phillies Weekly earlier this week about the bullpen. And I know that after the trade for Joan Duran, they went on a run and everybody seemed to start to figure out what their role was going to be within that, within the bullpen. And that's all fine and dandy. But if you're not performing, then those things matter a little bit less. So I want to get into what the numbers have looked like as of late. So just to put things into perspective for those who are unsure, sorry guys, running a little bit late and doing a little bit of the clerical work now. So yeah, but one of the big issues that I've noticed myself has been the struggles of the bullpen. It may not seem as obvious to those who are watching every single day. They have a lot of wins. They've been winning a lot of games. The Phillies have been one of the best teams in all of baseball as of late. What have they won? They've won quite a few games as of late. Let's take a look to get the exact breakdown. Since the month of September started, they're 12-4. So doing incredible in the month of September thus far. But the thing that has stood out to me, so again, a lot of the talk has been about how good the offense has been, and they're riding red hot right now. And Harrison Bader, the spark plug that he's been, and that he'll continue to be even when Trey Turner returns. But the big thing for me has been the bullpen. And here's why. So we're taking a look over the last 6 games, of which the Phillies have won 4 of those 6 games. The bullpen has allowed an earned run in each of those contests. So yes, they lost 5-0. They allowed the bullpen allowed a run. They won 9-6. They allowed 2 earned runs. Wins 6-5 and extras allowed 2 earned runs. So if you go back even further, they allowed 2 earned runs against the Royals in game 2, won the game 8-6. So not necessarily a close game, but it becomes closer when the bullpen allows those 2 runs. 8-2, you allowed 1 earned run. Okay, not that big of a deal. You allowed 2 earned runs against the Mets in an 11-3 win. You allowed 3 earned runs to the Mets in a 9-3 win. While that doesn't seem like a big deal, you're not going to be facing the type of pitching that you're facing right now. You're going to be facing elite pitching. And as the Phillies have shown as of late, and they showed earlier in the season, they have a propensity to weigh on a starter to get him out of the game and then really take advantage against the bullpen. They have struggled against starting pitching all year, especially compared to how they perform against bullpens. I think that was the early season talking point, was they seem to just not do well against a team starters, but once you get the bullpen in there, they were dominating. So it's 6 straight games, but it goes well beyond that. So the Phillies bullpen has allowed earned runs in 6 straight games, in 8 of the last 9, in 9 of the last 11, in 10 of the last 13, in 12 of the last 17, and 22 of the last 30 games they have pitched. Now you're going to tell me, oh, Kyle, that's not that big of a deal. Over that same time frame, the Phillies have played extremely well. And I'm going to take you back because they have the record over that time. So it goes all the way back to August 16th. And we're going to go through today. August 16th, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 2, 3, 4, 6 and 4, 8, 9, 9 and 5, plus the 12 and 4 we already mentioned. So 21 and 9 over those 30 games. However, the bullpen has allowed runs in 22 of 30 games. That is a problem, especially when you talk about what you expect from a Phillies team and any team really in the playoffs. And Alex jumping in with the comment, don't teams have a quicker hook in the playoffs nowadays? They do, but they also have a quicker hook on their starting pitchers. And that's part of the thing that I want to get to is once your starting pitcher is in danger, one thing that the Phillies have done well this season is they've allowed their starting pitchers to give them length to work through any difficulties and then give their bullpen cleaner innings in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. It's not always the case. Sometimes they go to stretch a guy too far, but I would imagine postseason you will see more often a guy goes 6 and then you set yourself up for the bullpen. Well, the problem is if you're setting yourself up for a bullpen that can't seem to get out of its own way, and you're an offense that's struggling against starting pitching at the moment, those two things don't add up. If you can't get to a starting pitcher and your starting pitcher has to turn it over to a bullpen that's leaking runs, you're setting yourself up for failure if a team especially can get to one of your starting pitchers, which is a depleted section of your team at the moment. Yes, Christopher Sanchez is pitching extremely well, as is Ranger Suarez, and Luzardo is pitching very well also, but you clearly are missing Zach Wheeler. Aaron Nola does not look like the guy that he used to and would likely only find himself in a position to pitch if absolutely required in a 7-game series. So you likely won't even see him pitch in the divisional series once the playoffs begin. They're testing out tonight the Walker Buehler back-to-back piggybacking scenario. It'll be Taijuan Walker starting the game, Walker Buehler pitching out of the bullpen in relief, a planned game. Maybe they can take some sort of approach like that in a different game. However, this just it opens the door to potential issues. If you are not getting to a team's starting pitcher, it doesn't matter how bad their bullpen is if they can shorten the game for that bullpen. And the same thing applies for the Phillies, but some of the most reliable arms in that bullpen have been the ones who are suffering at the moment. So I filtered on True Media. Thanks to True Media. I filtered for the 17th, the last 30 games, 17th through yesterday. Matt Strahm is pitching the best he's pitched all season. He has a 1.46 ERA. He's only allowed 2 earned runs over his last 13 games, 12 and a third innings. He's one of your key pieces back there. There's some other guys who have good numbers. Lou Trevino, not sure what his postseason usage is going to look like. Joan Duran has been great, a 1.98 ERA, 3 earned runs over 15 appearances, 13 and 2/3 innings. Now, this is where you start to get into trouble a little bit. Tanner Banks, who has been a surprise for the majority of the season. I think by this point now, he's no longer surprising anybody, but a surprise nonetheless for what people had expected of him coming into the season. His ERA is at 3.55 over the last 30 days. Not alarming, but not the best. Again, he'll likely only come in an emergency. I would imagine they'll lean heavily on the back end of their bullpen, which is led by Duran and Strahm, the two guys I already mentioned at the top. Now, here is where it's a true concern for me because these next two guys I'm going to mention are key cogs in the Phillies bullpen and will be relied upon heavily come the postseason. David Robertson. He has made 14 appearances He has pitched a total of 12 innings. He has, over the last 30 days, he has allowed 7 earned runs. That is half an earned run a game from a guy who's supposed to be one of the key cogs in your bullpen. Now, he didn't pitch for a long time. We all know he's a little bit older. My guess is he's getting himself prepared for the postseason. And we do want to look at these guys' postseason numbers a little bit later because it is important to understand what those guys may, why this won't be an Achilles heel. But we're going to look at that together because I haven't gotten that prepared yet. So I wanted to take a look at what was plaguing the team, and then we can all find out together what are the signals that this may not be as much of an issue as it looks like right now. Miza, a guy who came over a little bit ago, he likely is only a September call-up. However, with Alvarado being out the rest of the year and not being available in the postseason, there was a chance that if he had pitched well, especially because he's done so well against lefties, that he might make it. He has 3 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings. Not ideal. Orion Kerkering, a guy who I have spoken highly of all season. I wrote a nice piece about how his two-seamer and his sinker has changed the way that he's able to pitch this season. He's able to pitch more confidently. I really thought that the Duran trade did a lot to help him settle in that 7 or 8 spot and not being expected to step into the 9th at any point. Not that he's ever expressed concerns about that, but it seemed like there was some sort of block with him. Same thing with when he inherits runners. I think that Rob has started to back away from that, but he used to be the cleanup guy after Romano, who showed that he couldn't do it. His ERA, he's made 13 appearances, 10 innings. He has also allowed 7 earned runs. So your 2 top right-handed options behind Jhoan Duran have allowed 7 earned runs apiece in the last month. That is not going to get it done. It's not going to get it done in the postseason. And the Phillies suddenly have a very real problem on their hands. Now, the total ERA is 4.47 for the relievers over the last month. That is weighed, for the pitching staff overall in the last month. That is weighed down heavily by Jordan Romano's 40.5 ERA, Hoffman's 27 ERA, Max Lazar's 10.13 ERA. These are guys that I don't anticipate playing and pitching meaningful innings come October. Joe Ross is 7.36. Alvarado's 7.5. Taijuan Walker even a 7.2 over the last month. But bullpen-wise, we're looking at quite a few guys who weigh that down. That being said, the guys who have pitched the most, the guys who have appeared in the most games are the ones that seem to be struggling the most outside of Jhoan Duran. Again, Robertson, a 5.25 ERA over the last month. Banks, a 3.55. Kerkering, a 6.30 ERA. Trevino may be very well pitching himself into an important position come postseason, at least as a cleanup guy to survive a rough inning from a starter if they need to. Now, I know what everybody's going to say. Well, you're going to have Taijuan Walker back in the bullpen. You're going to have Walker Buehler in the bullpen. Rob Thompson has kind of hinted at the fact that if anybody has to go to the bullpen starting pitching-wise, it's likely not going to be Aaron Nola. He hasn't pitched out of the bullpen at any point in his career, so likely not the guy that they're going to entrust back there. I don't know where to go with this. I don't know if David Robertson, if it's a concern. He pitched really well the last time he threw. I don't know if that means that just give him some time to get his feet underneath him. I can't tell you what his, I can't tell you what his numbers mean right now. All I can tell you is that there are alarms going off for me at the moment. That being said, we know what he's been able to do in the postseason. Even for the Phillies, he pitched really well in the postseason. He has a career 3.04 ERA in the postseason with the Phillies previously. What did he do? Pitched in 2022. He pitched in 8 games and only allowed 1 earned run over those 8 games. So he has a recent track history of pitching well in the postseason. He did have 2 earned runs in 2 innings with as a member of Miami against Philly back in 2023. Did not make the postseason last year as a member of the Texas Rangers, or at least didn't pitch. But he has recent success. We know the long-term success. He had that incredible run with the Yankees in 2017. He had an incredible run with them in 2009 as the man who took over for the great Mariano Rivera. So he does have a history of pitching well in the postseason, but he doesn't have a history of being 40 and pitching well in the postseason for a brand new team in an unlikely environment in this new era. So it'll be something that's worth watching. It's not something that gives me the most confidence in the world. I'll tell you that much. Again, his numbers look good otherwise come the postseason. But his numbers since coming to the Phillies this year have left something to be desired. A 4.20 ERA overall, and again, a 5.25 ERA. So a couple of his first few appearances were good. Since then, really struggling. I want to look at what Orion Kerkering has done in the postseason as well to see if there's anything that really stands out for me there. So let's take a look at Kerkering's postseason numbers. Kerkering, let's take a look. Kerkering has a 3 ERA in the postseason. In the NLCS a couple years ago is when he got beat up a little bit. His last 2 times pitching, so two earned runs for the Phils against Arizona in 4 games, 1 earned run in 4 games for the Phils against the Mets in the DS last season. I think everybody remembers the one big run that he gave up and the one big run that Hoffman gave up against the Mets last year. Overall, a 3 ERA. He pitched pretty well in 23 as well, only 3 innings, but in his 9 innings, he's allowed 11 hits, 3 earned runs, 5 walks. So something that we'll have to watch pretty quickly for sure. Let's check out the comment here from Alex. How about using the extra roster spots to give these guys a break, except Robertson, and get some downtime for them before the last game? I actually thought that would be something that they would do more, but I think Rob is trying to set these guys up and get them comfortable in the roles that they'll be pitching in come October. Especially now that they have the first round bye locked up, I think everybody's going to get some natural rest. I would like to see more of Trevino and Miza and Lazar or whoever else they currently have up at the moment. Let's look at the Phillies' current roster because I don't want to misspeak on some of the. Yes, I would like to see more Max Lazar. I would like to see more Tim Miza. I would like to see more Lou Trevino. It's something that I thought that they could do with Alvarado, especially because of how effective everybody assumed that he would be coming back. But I think having him would have been nice, but you do still have some arms that you can use to get these guys some extra rest. But like Rob said, they have other things in mind. I think if they are able to confirm and lock up that first round bye, maybe they take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. But if they really want home field advantage throughout, they're not that far off from the Brewers. And do you tell these guys to take the foot off the gas pedal to get that done? I don't know if that's necessarily the smartest idea. I'm a little. I think the way that I've watched this team and the way that they've performed, it didn't stand out right away. But I remember sitting in the box during the last homestand, and again, it was another big win, another blowout win, and feeling like I don't want to be the guy who's negative, but it is noticeable how often they've given up runs recently. And in the postseason, you expect closer games. You expect more bullpen usage than maybe you normally would have, quicker hooks on your starters. And to me, it's a concern of mine. And I really do wonder if people feel the same. So I'm going to put the on Twitter. I'm going to put out a little poll on Twitter. If you guys want to go there at Kyle Fisher 45, are the Phillies bullpen are the Phillies recent bullpen struggles a true concern for you come postseason? Yes. No. And then what bullpen struggles, right? Okay, let's go. We're going to set it for the next hour. No days, 1 hour. We're going to post it. Everybody, make sure you get there. Get yourself a vote in on the poll. We'll revisit the poll later in the show. So let's get this out there. There we go. All right. I do have the poll up on Twitter now. If anybody wants to take a vote on that. Again, I am being a little I don't know, facetious isn't the right word, because I think that the bullpen is going to be fine overall, but it is a curious thing to watch for me, because again, 6 straight, 8 of 9, 22 of the last 30 is not an ideal situation when it comes to bullpen, especially with how quickly starters are pulled in the postseason. Another comment from Alex. Alex killing the comment section today. Hope he has that crown on the YouTube stream, because he should at this point maybe bring up some AAA starters to soak up 2 to 4 innings in the late innings just to get them experience and rest the arms in the pen. I'm not opposed to that idea. I thought that Seth Johnson would have been a nice call up for them. He's pitched well when he has pitched before, and I thought that he, being a multi-inning guy, he could be somebody who would take some innings. I think that if they haven't done that yet, it's unlikely that they will, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. We do have 2 weeks left, 9 games still, so do have some things cooking for the team. Speaking of cooking, a few people are cooking on their bodies, making sure that their bodies are good, making sure that they're ready to return from the injured list. Alec Boehm expected to be activated and back in the Phillies lineup tonight, which is a huge thing for the Phillies. They should have, but with them being on the West Coast, lineups won't be available for a little bit. Taijuan Walker on the mound. Again, you'll have Alec Boehm likely back in the lineup. We'll see what that means as far as Kemp versus Wilson. They are facing a right-hander, so I don't think you're going to find out anything tonight. Likely that one of those guys sit, or both of those guys sit, and you end up with the Harper, Kepler, Bader, not Harper, Marsh, Kepler, Bader outfield. With him returning to third, I guess there's a chance that Wilson or Kemp could play second, but my guess is that you'll see Bryson Stott there, especially he does have a hit in 8 at bat. He does have a home run in 8 at bats, 2 for 8 and a home run for Stott against tonight's pitcher, Ryan Nelson. So we'll have to see how things shake out in the desert. Well, Alex, I'm going to vote for you then, since you don't have Twitter. We're going to vote yes. Yes, this is a true struggle. This is a true concern of mine. So we're going to see that percentage shoot up, because that is where the poll is, sir. But appreciate the love anyway. Like I said, so Alec Boehm should be back in the lineup tonight, which is huge for the Phillies. Again, he'll probably be batting in like the middle of the lineup. Harrison Bader's been a great right-hander for them at the top. He'll stay at the top for now. When Trey Turner is ready to return, he will definitely find his way back to the top of that lineup. Great question from Alex here. How long is Sosa going to miss? It seems like the bare minimum. The latest update from the reporters at the ballpark out in Los Angeles, when they spoke yesterday, it seemed that Sosa will be activated prior to Tuesday's game, which is the minimum time he needed on the injured list. So that should be another huge thing for the Phillies. We know how good he is defensively. We know that he absolutely crushes left-handed pitching. And he and Stott have been almost mirror images of each other this season, especially as Stott starts to pick things up. He has been taking care of the righties. Sosa has been taking care of the lefties. The two of them hitting very, very well, and both bring incredible defense to that hole at second base. So Sosa should be back soon. Speaking of Trey Turner, he will likely be back prior to the postseason starting. Whether that means he gets a game in before the end of the season, that I'm not sure. If you ask Rob Thompson, all he says he's been doing great. He's the greatest. He's the greatest I've ever seen. He's doing very well. That's the big thing for him. He has done some fielding work. He's done some light hitting work in the cage. He was jogging at 50% at the field recently, and they have plans to ramp that up almost every single day. So that should be great. Again, jogged at 50%, slowly building that up. Thompson did say next week back in Citizens Bank Park, he will face some live pitching, likely being a minor league arm coming up to throw against him before he gets into an actual game. My assumption is that, I know that there's no minor league season right now, but my assumption is they won't do any sort of sim game. They'll just allow him to get some live reps against the pitcher and see how he's feeling, get him stretched out, making sure that he's comfortable for the postseason. If he's progressing well enough, he obviously could get in a game against the Twins before everything's wrapped up. And Alex, I couldn't agree with you more, with your girl more. Everybody loves Schwarber's back there. And Edmundo Sosa. These bees love Sosa. The people love Sosa. Philly loves Sosa. Everybody loves Sosa. So, cannot disagree with you and your lady there. That being said, we do have a big series coming up against Arizona. The reason it is so big, not necessarily about the Phillies, although the Phillies are, again, still need to clinch that first round bye. They do effectively have 4.5 games up on the Dodgers for that first round bye, but crazier things have happened. They currently sit 3 games behind the Brewers for the number 1 seed, which would guarantee home field advantage all the way through the playoffs. They have a better record than anybody in the American League, so that would suffice all the way through. You would like to have home field advantage in the NLCS if possible. And currently, again, they have what looks like a 4.5 game lead over 5. Yeah, 5. So what does it become, like 5.5 or 6? Because they own the season tiebreaker over the Dodgers. So they do have that over the Dodgers at the moment. Dodgers still have the Padres nipping at their heels. Speaking of nipping at the heels, the Diamondbacks that the Phillies are facing are on the heels, only 2 games back of the New York Mets for that final wild card spot. Now, if you're a cheeky thinker, you may consider maybe getting some extra rest these next few days and making sure that the Mets are out of it. But do you want to ignite a team that haunted you in postseasons past? Or do you want to accept the fact that, hey, we know that we can handle the Mets and we are not worried about them getting into the playoffs? Currently, both the Diamondbacks and the Reds sit 2 games back. The Giants, who are half a game under 500 at the moment at 76 and 77, they sit 3 games behind the New York Mets. I think anybody else. The Cardinals technically not mathematically eliminated, but they are 5 games back of the Mets at the moment. I think that's a stretch with only 9 left to play. So it will be exactly. Don't piss off the baseball gods, Alex. We know all about that. Don't do that. Quick break, guys. Quick break. I've been talking 28 minutes uninterrupted to this point. Let's take a quick drink sesh real fast. Hydrate up, folks. Could use a sponsor on those. A little Celsius packet for your boy midday pickup. Oh, man. All right. Speaking of the Phillies squad, don't forget to give us a follow over at Philadelphia SN on X, Philly Sports Network on Blue Sky, Philly Sports Network on YouTube, where you're watching us right now. If you're not watching us on social media, and over at PhillySportsNetwork.com or MetroPhiladelphia.com. That's where you can find all of our stuff. The Phillies team, despite what the Eagles are doing, despite there being early offseason Sixers and Flyers news, the Phillies team continues to dominate the views over at Philly Sports Network. So if you haven't checked us out, you need to do so. Our guy, Matt Watson, one of our lead writers, our lead editor as well, put together a nice little preview for this weekend's festivities in Arizona. Taijuan Walker again taking on Ryan Nelson in tonight's matchup. Walker will 100% be piggybacked by Walker Buehler. It'll be interesting to see what Buehler does out of the bullpen. I know he's done it before. He did secure the final out in the 2024 World Series for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But I think there's a common misconception that he had pitched a ton in the bullpen that postseason. That was his only time pitching out of the bullpen last season, in the postseason. So not an exact science. However, he's shown a propensity. He has that dog in him, as they say. And I think that that's a guy who it'll be interesting to watch what he does. I think that he has some chutzpah left, if you will, in the gut. So I don't expect him to not perform at all. Will win or lose, the most interesting thing to watch tonight is those two. How much can you get out of those two? What's the inning limit? Rob Thompson has not been exact on what the pitch count is for each guy, but they will be piggybacking. I think it's more, we've seen Walker out of the bullpen before. Let's see how Buehler looks out of the bullpen, and really just see what those guys need. Maybe you need to clean up an inning, so you go a Max Lazard or an Orion Kirkring or a David Robertson, depending on the situation, and then you transition to the other guy in a clean inning. I think that they'll likely discuss pockets. That would be that'll be what they end up doing in the postseason for guys, especially guys who are starters converting to relievers. They'll talk before the game. Hey, if we get to X point in the lineup the second time through, that may be a spot where you're pitching, or this may be a spot that we go to you once it turns to the fourth inning. This may be a spot that we go to you in. So that would be an interesting approach. I think we'll have to see exactly what happens tonight. Rob has only given so many details to this point, but I think that that's the most important thing to watch tonight, win or lose. Tomorrow night, Aaron Nola takes them out. And again, it's likely another tryout for Aaron Nola to see if he would be that fourth starter come postseason. I think they have officially dedicated themselves to going with the three lefties in the lineup. Rob Thompson even recently told reporters, that they would likely break up the two power lefties with Suarez in the middle. Again, all but confirming that it'll be the three lefties come playoff time in that rotation. So you're going to have Chris Sanchez. They did move the rotation around a little bit. Sanchez will be starting this coming Tuesday instead of, I believe he was scheduled to go Monday, but going Tuesday allows him to pitch on the very last day of the season, which then would in turn put him on regular rest for that first game in the National League Division Series, regardless of who they play. So they will have unless something horribly wrong happens the next few days, they will have that first round bye. So should be something that they see is Sanchez being lined up properly for the divisional series. The final game on Sunday will see the aforementioned Ranger Suarez pitching against Eduardo Rodriguez in a battle of the lefties, if you will. For me, I just want to see consistency from Suarez. I want to see, that bulldog mentality. Let me see what he's got as far as, the energy that he brings in the game. I don't think that there's any concern about him like suddenly falling off and falling into that midseason swoon that he seemingly has had the last two seasons. To me, I'm feeling good about where Ranger Suarez stands at the moment. Even speaking of that month-long stretch that I was talking about for the Phillies, Ranger Suarez has a 1.47 ERA over the past month. So really, really has turned it on. He's pitched really well. Chris Sanchez a 3.49, Luzardo a 3.58, and we know what Sanchez has done all season long. So to me, I think that they are good to go as far as starting pitching is concerned, at least in that divisional series. Who the fourth guy will be, obviously that matters a little bit. Matters a little bit more, but if they get to the championship series, and if they do need that fourth guy, so we'll have to see how everybody goes. Yeah, I mean, Alex, again, with the fire comment here, 93, 94 consistently, and he has command. This is the big question for me, right? Because Taijuan Walker pitched pretty damn well for the Phillies his first season as a fourth starter. You know, I wouldn't call him an ace by any means, but he pitched pretty damn well, and he wasn't used in the postseason. And then the next year, he has the worst season of his career and doesn't make the postseason roster. And then this year, a bit of a rebound, at least in the middle months there. And does he make the roster? Does he make the roster over Aaron Nola? Do you go to an Aaron Nola who has struggled all season thinking that he might turn it around, especially if his only job is going to be essentially as an opener? Because I don't think there's a scenario where Aaron Nola is expected to carry major innings in the postseason with the way that he's pitched. So the question really does become, do you bother carrying him when you can carry Lou Trevino or Max Lazar or Seth Johnson or somebody who can give you comfortable innings out of the bullpen and not like his big issue has been these blow up innings. But if he's only in the game for 2 innings at the start and one of them is a blow up inning, then you haven't done yourself any favors. Now, we're talking about a guy, this is basically the worst, not basically, it's the worst year of his career. It's probably the only bad year of his career outside of 2016. And he got hurt that year. And his ERA was 2 runs lower than it is right now. So it is an interesting question. It's a question that we talked about here on Alley Talk in the past is Aaron Nola a guy who makes the postseason roster? My assumption is that for the championship series, he will not. And it's because you can have more flexibility with somebody who's comfortable pitching out of the bullpen. You know you're not going to need him, and you can always change rosters in between. My guess is, and this sounds crazy, but my guess is that Aaron Nola does not make the divisional series roster, which is a shame. And you really feel for the guy because you know he grinds. He's been a grinder. He's been a guy who has put the team on his back multiple times over the last few years. He is a guy who has carried them at multiple times. His career ERA in the postseason of 4.02. It does seem to get worse with each round. So DS career, it's 324. It's a 6 in the CS. It's an 864 in the World Series. Not the best. Those 2 starts, he got lit up 8 earned runs in 8 1/3 innings back in the World Series. Wild card round, not that we're going to see that, but he is 2-0 with a 0 ERA. So he has extensive postseason experience. It will be great to have him in that clubhouse to speak to the guys, to help them calm down. It's one of the things that Cole Hamels told me about the things that Zach Wheeler can still offer beyond the field is he can actually help more guys right now because he's not pitching by helping them and watching with them and working on their stuff because he doesn't have to worry about his own. Obviously, it would be better to have him on the field. It's not what me or Cole Hamels are saying, but he can almost help more men on the roster by not having to pitch. And Aaron Nola could potentially do the same. He's pitched in big moments before. He's pitched in big games. I don't think it's going to be a problem if he doesn't make the roster. I think he may end up helping more people. The big thing for me is the CS, and the only way that he pitches meaningful innings in the CS is if he looks decent these next couple starts. He doesn't need to look lights out, but he needs to look okay. He needs to look more like that one Aaron Nola start. He had one, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago? It was against the Mets. He had the 6 innings and 0 earned runs against the Mets. He had a 6-inning, 2 earned run outing against Washington. He went 6. Those are both since coming off the injured list. But his ERA since coming off the injured list is not great. It's a 6.89 ERA since coming off the injured list. So all those things that plagued him early in the season, they haven't gone anywhere. And again, it's 2 out of 6 starts have been good. The rest have been like horrendous. I mean, a 2 1/3 innings, 6 earned runs, 7 hits, 1 walk. 4 earned runs, 4 hits, 3 walks. 6 earned runs, 6 hits, 2 walks. 6 earned runs, 6 hits to and a walk. This is, again, the other 2 starts were really good, but when you see that, it's just it's not good. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him in the offseason. You know that he's going to be here 6 more years, 5 more years, whatever the contract is. He's likely going to have to do a lot. Go to line drive, figure something out, different pitch mix. I noticed that they used the curveball a lot more in that start against the Mets. I think I even have a note on it because I asked Rob Thompson. I was going to ask Rob Thompson about something. Let me see if I have my notes. Just Aaron Nola. Yeah. Nola. Yeah, so he had a huge uptick in changeups. 22% changeup, 22% curves, 24% sinker, 29% fastball, which is unusual for Aaron Nola. And I asked Rob Thompson, is it something you guys saw in the plan ahead of time, or was it read and react, seeing how pitchers were, the hitters were reacting, and then changing the course accordingly? And he said there was a little bit of an uptick in the fastball that they wanted to go in with, but once they saw how the changeup was working, they started pummeling it. And he's a veteran guy who can make those adjustments, and JT's a veteran who makes those adjustments. And when those adjustments aren't being made regularly, that typically means that things are not working. And whatever he needs to do, break down and rebuild his mechanics. My assumption is that pitching like this, although it ended up not being the case with Taijuan Walker, but most of the time when you see guys pitch like this, there's an underlying issue somewhere that's just not showing up on scans, or it doesn't show up as pain, but maybe he has something, loose bodies in his shoulder, whatever the case may be. We'll have to wait for the offseason to see what that looks like. Excuse me. Once again, you are here watching Alley Talk, just like you can watch every single Friday at 2 p.m. Alley Talk here on Phillies Sports Network, bringing you all the latest and greatest in Phillies news. We already talked about the injury updates. Alec Bohm will be activated today. Edmundo Sosa will be activated on Tuesday. Trey Turner is coming along, jogging at 50%, taking some swings in the cage, doing some fielding practice. He's looking good. He's getting his body and his mental right for the postseason. And at the top, if you missed it, we talked about the struggles of the bullpen. You can go find the comment on the poll, rather, in the comments on YouTube. Find the poll on Twitter at Kyle Fisher 45. Are the bullpen struggles a concern for you going into the postseason? What bullpen struggles, you might ask? How about bullpen allowing earned runs in 6 straight, 8 of the last 9, 9 of the last 11, 10 of the last 13, 12 of the last 17, and 22 of the last 30 games? Not ideal for the Phillies. Their reliever ERA over the last month is 24th in the league at a 5.01. Not going to get it done. Not going to get it done in the postseason. 5.01 ERA. Everybody's been talking about how bad the Dodgers bullpen was, and that's why the Phillies were able to get to them. But if your bullpen is not performing in the exact same way, then you really are relying on your starters, and that has been an Achilles heel for these Phillies. Them facing starting pitching has been an Achilles heel. It's been that way all season long. If they don't get on teams early and have that one big inning early and then weigh on that starter, you're talking about six innings of one-hit ball from Shohei Ohtani. You're talking about Blake Snell carving you up left and right in the postseason. It really is a strange phenomenon, because when you don't think of the Phillies bullpen as having an ERA over 5 in the last month because they've won a lot of games. But it really is a concern of mine. And then the starting pitching, again, this includes includes a few guys who are likely not to pitch in the postseason in a starting rotation, but 4.18 ERA from the starting rotation over that same period. So really, really tough. Let's see what we got. Some new comments in here. Philly fandom hopping in. Bullpen has been an issue since 2013 2013. I mean, heck, you're going back to 2013. There's been a whole lot of issues across the board for the Phillies. 2013. But yeah, you're not wrong. Look, they clearly haven't put a priority on it until they went out and got Joan Duran, which was a huge, huge get by Dombrowski and the Phillies. Another comment from Philly fandom. Offense is clutch. Bullpen might be a stretch, but they always find a way to win. We won the Dodgers series and the Brewers series, not to mention sweeping the Mets. Definitely cannot disagree with that. In spite of these struggles that I'm talking about, they are kicking ass in their last 30 games. They're winning games left and right. They have less than 10 losses in the last 30. You cannot ask for a better result. But you're not going to play the Washington Nationals. You're not going to play the Kansas City Royals. You're going to play premier pitching staffs across the board, maybe unless you play the Mets. You're going to play some of the best pitching in baseball, and they have shown a propensity for not being able to hit starting pitching. So if they can't hit starting pitching and your bullpen is struggling and they do get to one of your starters, even if you look at it like, we'll use the Dodgers as an example. If their bullpen stinks, well, you're likely to score off of their bullpen. But if you can't get to their starter and they get one or two off of yours, well, guess what? Your bullpen's not performing well either. And to me, that's the biggest concern for me is, hey, first time Luzardo gets in trouble, are we going to let him work through that, or are we pulling him? It's game 3 of the NLDS. You need this victory. Are you pulling Luzardo to turn the ball over to Miza, to Robertson and his 5.84 ERA over the last month? To Kirkring and his over 6 ERA in the last month? You hope that those guys figure it out, and you need to rest your laurels on the fact that these guys are professionals, and they will likely figure it out. They'll have some additional rest. This bullpen has been taxed, but they will have some additional rest as the season comes to a close. They'll have the week off while the team's playing the wild card round, but that divisional series is a concern of mine. Speaking of concerns overall, not a whole lot of concerns when it comes to the offense. I'll tell you that much. Over the last week, they did struggle against starting pitching, a 2.43 batting average against starting pitching. But let's go back to that same month because I want to go back. We've been talking about the 17th as the measuring stick. And I've actually used this as the kind of accidental. Nobody confirmed that there was a full platoon in the outfield and that Nick Castellanos was added to it. At first, it was Bader and Kepler and Marsh and Wilson. We're going to rotate those guys, and we have this rotation for a week, and we have a rotation that we're going to figure out. And everybody's playing well, so we're going to take some more time to figure it out. And then suddenly, Nick Castellanos found himself in it, and he, over that same time period. Everybody wants to go back to, I think it's the beginning of July. And even if you go to the beginning of August, he was really struggling. But since the unofficial start of him becoming part of this rotation was that weekend. So he spent the game. There was a game that everybody assumed he would start on Saturday where he sat out. It was the third time he sat out in a week. And then shortly after the 17th is when Rob Thompson made the comments we're checking our ego at the door. Everybody's on the same page. Bader and Kepler have talked publicly, and Marsh have talked publicly about how they had a meeting, and all those guys are on the same page as far as look, whoever's name is in the lineup, the next guy got to be ready, and we're gonna go ahead and support each other because there's a bigger goal here than personal pride. And everybody wants to talk about what Nick Castellanos said. I think he actually handled it very well, especially for how he's done with comments in the media in the past. Well, Nick Castellanos is hitting 333 since then, by the way. Since the last month, he's hitting 333. Multiple multi-hit games. A lot of singles again, which was something that we saw early in the season when he was helping carry the offense. 2 doubles, a triple, no homers, but that's okay when you're hitting 333. He has a 12.2% walk rate over the last month. To me, I talked here on this show, and I talked about it on Fox Sports The Gambler, and I talked about it on Fox 29, The Fantastic Sports Show, and I talked about it everywhere. Nick Castellanos didn't need to be in some platoon. He's not washed up. He's a guy who just needed a couple days off because he tried to prove that he was an everyday player still, and he's doing it in a position that he didn't sign here to play necessarily. I think he was prepared to play the outfield, but every day for 3 straight years, I don't think he was prepared to do that. And he's put a lot of effort into cleaning up his defense and a lot of effort into being a major part of this clubhouse and this culture. And a lot of effort of taking young guys under his wing and showing them the way that the game is played. And all I asked fans out there to do was give him a little bit of time, a little bit of faith. And I asked the manager through here, not to his face, but I asked the manager to give him a couple days off. Just give him a couple days off his feet. Let him relax a little bit. He's Nick Castellanos. Let him relax a little bit. Boom. What does he give you in return? 20 games, 18 starts, a 333 average, a 415 on base, a 444 slug, an 859 OPS. No big deal. No big deal. Just the best walk rate he's ever had. 12.2%. That's nothing. That's nothing. See, that's why you listen to this show. That's why you listen to Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network, because we give you the insight. If you listened, like Alex in the comments, because he's been an avid watcher, he's been an avid commenter, he always jumps in the conversation. He can tell you that we talked about Nick Castellanos on this show not being over the hump, not being washed up. You give him a couple days off his feet, and he's going to be just fine. And that's exactly what happened. Woo! Gosh, we're good at this. All right. Another quick break. We're going to get into the last topic about what the Phillies do when it comes to the postseason offense. See, when you don't have a co-host and you're running late, you make a snack for yourself and you can't eat it. So I got a snack sitting right here just teasing me, just wafting. So we're going to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes. Like I said, this is Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network, where we appreciate the love. We appreciate all the comments. I really, really do think that we have built a really strong community here on Philly Sports Network. We're not like some of those talk shows on the radio in Philadelphia where you tune in and you hear a bunch of hot takes and a bunch of nonsense and a bunch of tearing down the teams that we love to watch day in and day out. We really do love our teams here. Make sure we have a lot of things going on over on Philly Sports Network. Some great stuff from our guy Jimmy King on the Philly Union. Corey Naito with the 5 key matchups to watch for Eagles-Rams this weekend. Another breaking down the tush-push controversy. Haley Taylor Simon, who is all over the place in Philadelphia media. She has a nice little interview with Spencer Gill from the Flyers. We have updates on the Sixers and them doing the throwback. Boom, these throwback jerseys and the court theme. A lot of great things coming out of Philly Sports Network. I already mentioned what the Phillies team did. We put out our preview today. Alec Costaval had the recap. Put out some nice things on. I put out a nice piece on Max Kepler and his emotional journey. So if you haven't read that, make sure you go up and check that out. His emotional and mental journey back to being a key contributor here on a major league roster with World Series aspirations. So a lot of fun things going over on Philly Sports Network, at Philadelphia SN on X, at Philly Sports Net on Blue Sky, at Kyle Fisher 45 is where you can find me on both those, and Instagram. Enough promotion. Let's get back to the sports talk. Jeez, Kyle, come on. Okay, so we talked about it. We talked about the updates. We talked about who's going to do what, and it's time to get into the Phillies batting. Over the last month, during that same period where I talked about how good or how much the bullpen has struggled, well, the offense has been red hot. I mean, red hot. A 282, 344, 495 slash line. Good for an 840 OPS, third in the majors. Oddly enough, one team ahead of them, the New York Mets. Now, that's against starting pitching, that is. So we talked about how they've struggled against starting pitching recently, but overall, against starters the last month, while the bullpen has struggled, they actually have some of the best numbers in the game, which is huge. So you hope that they can figure that out a little bit. Even more impressive, though, against relievers over that stretch. And I know that I talked about how they've taken advantage of relievers. They have an 884 OPS. It's number one in baseball. They have a 9.5% walk rate. You don't think walks when you think of this team outside of Kyle Schwarber, really. I mean, I know Bryce walks, but he also strikes out a good amount. It's interesting to see where this team is over the last month. And if you look at, let's just go 1 week back. Let's just 1 week. I'm not picking a specific day. We're just going to go to last week. 268 average against relievers. That's okay. Against starters, a 243. A 766 OPS because they still do walk at a good rate. But that 766 OPS is 12th. Behind the Dodgers, behind the Brewers, behind the Cubs, behind the Mets and Padres, even two teams who are on the edge of postseason contention. So I do think, and going to throw your comment up here, Philly fandom, top tier offense again, especially this last month they have been. And it cannot be understated how much juice Harrison Bader has brought to this team. It can't. Harrison Bader has brought something to this team, not only with outfield stability, which is something that has been missing from this team for a very long time, center field stability, something that's been missing from this team even longer. I'm talking like Ben Revere days. Yeah, Ben Revere. He might be the best center fielder the Phillies have had since Shane Victorino. And this might be the only season that he's here. But he brought a lot of stability. He put Brandon Marsh in a more comfortable position. Max Kepler, even when he's in the game against the lefties, and this big shouts to Nick being accepting and not putting up a fight of taking this step back. You've put Max Kepler in a more comfortable position, in his natural position in right field. He basically only exclusively played right field in Minnesota for all those years. So I think the one thing I do, I'm going to hop over to this comment right now because Philly fandom bringing up a good one. One thing I'm super worried about is the loss of motivation like we saw last year in the play. And that would have worried me a little bit more if the last two games in the Dodgers series, everybody took a rest. We know we got to go to Arizona. We have another travel day. We had the celebration Monday night. We could take the night off, the hangover lineup, as they call it. But almost everybody was in the lineup. And Rob Thompson said, yeah, it was great that we celebrated, but we got more that we're fighting for here. We know there's more to do before the regular season is done. And to me, that is I think this team has lived by whatever mantra Rob Thompson puts out there. And I think that they do a good job of all rowing in unison when it comes to attitude. And Thompson, not that he's ever a guy who would admit that they're taking their foot off the gas, but I do really think that having Rob Thompson come out there and say, hey, look, we're not done. Job's not done. Jalen Hurtsism. Job's not done. Keep the main thing the main thing. We want home field advantage. We're not taking our foot off the gas just yet. And I think that plus the fact that they're a little injured. I know there was concerns last year about the layoff losing some momentum, but I think it's just going to make them a little bit healthier. You're going to have more days off for Schwarber, more days off for Castellanos, more days off for the pitching, which feels very taxed at the moment. You're going to have Trey with an extra week to pull himself up and make sure that he can run on that thing comfortably, run on that hamstring comfortably. Alec Bohm, get him a few more swings at bats. A little response comment from Alex. They all try to hit homers in the playoffs and pivot for contact this year. Hopefully continues in the playoffs. I agree. We just talked about what Nick Castellanos is doing. He's sitting over 300, hitting 333 in the last month, and it's almost all singles. That's not a guy you think of as a singles hitter. Trey Turner changed up his whole approach. I think that he's going to continue to do that when he returns to the lineup. Kyle Schwarber is hitting lefties at a rate that he never has before, at one of the best rates in the history of the game. And we all know that Bryce Harper can hit lefties. I think Bryce has sacrificed some power this year to make sure that he's getting on base more often. They really did have a different attitude. And I think that is often overlooked, is because they do have funks where they all kind of get on the same page again, where they all get in that mindset of like trying to do too much. And I think taking a step back and accepting, like, you have teammates who will pick you up. So just try and help the team instead of try and help yourself is something that a lot of these guys have talked about getting out of their heads. Brandon Marsh talked about it early in the season. When I talked to Max Kepler recently, he talked about it. When I talked to Harrison Bader about this clubhouse, he said that was one of the things that jumped out to him when he came to this ball club was how singularly focused they are on this goal. Now, there's a lot of teams that say that, and that never guarantees you World Series appearance, let alone the championship. But they do seem to have a different approach all season long. They do seem to have a different mentality. And the big difference for me is they got off to a very hot start last season. And then basically from like the middle of June to the end of the year, played about 500 ball. A little bit better than 500, but they basically played about 500 ball. Well, that's not the case this year. They got off to a really decent start, kind of tapered a little bit in the middle, and even from before the All-Star break, they are one of the best teams in all of baseball. Since the All-Star break, they're one of the best teams in baseball. Since the trade deadline, they are even better. So to me, you look at how well they're playing right now. Like I said, in the last 30 games, they have less than 10 losses. That's an incredible rate. I mean, you're winning at almost a 70% clip. They are playing some of their best ball, and that's without Trey Turner in the lineup. That's without Alec Bohm in the lineup. That's without Zach Wheeler on the mound. That's with David Robertson struggling. That's with Orion Kerkering struggling. They are playing some of the best baseball right now, just like the Mets were coming into the postseason last year. And you saw what they were able to ride into the championship series until they hit the big dogs in the Dodgers. And nobody feels like a runaway favorite this year. The Dodgers don't feel like the same team this season as they were last season. They don't. The Mets are not the same team that they were last season. It's really, really I don't think it was motivation personally. I think that these guys are professionals. They're all motivated, but I know it felt like that, Philly fan. I'm not saying that you're crazy, but it did feel like the foot was pulled off the gas a little bit. Like, now we're going to beat this team because we're better than the Mets on paper, and we'll be just fine. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, nobody's hitting. What are we going to do? Oh, we need to make up for XYZ earlier. And like, then they get homer happy. But I don't think that's what this team's going to do. It doesn't guarantee that you win, but they're playing a different brand of baseball all season. And I think that when you get contributors from everybody, from all 26, that's when you really start to roll and to gel, and nobody's worried about personal accolades. Everybody's like Stott and Sosa. They could be competing with each other for reps, but instead they are getting it done together. Max Kepler is a guy who was on the edge of DFA. Brandon Marsh couldn't crack 200 to save his life to start the season. Now, all of a sudden, Harrison Bader comes in here. He's playing the best ball he's ever played. Nick Castellanos is playing as good as he has in a Phillies uniform outside of the power surge. But if he continues to get on, if he gets singles and walks, that just lengthens your lineup. If he's hitting 5th, 6th, even if he's down at 7th, that turns your lineup over quicker. I don't need you to hit doubles and home runs if you're hitting 6th or 7th. I need you to get on so that the guys at the top can do what they do. And the guys at the bottom are doing what they're doing too. So I think that the Phillies offense is in a good spot. I think that if they continue to play the way that they've played all season long, and then when Trey Turner returns, if he's able to play how he did all season long, that will be key. I think Alec Bohm, with his propensity to hit with runners in scoring position, anywhere you put him in the lineup, he should be a addition. He should be a plus. We know that he's a strong defender, and you do have guys you can put in as a defensive replacement if you truly need to, just as they will do in the outfield. I'm feeling pretty good about this team. My number one thing that I'm watching for the rest of the season is that 4-starter role. So can one of the right-handers do enough to crack the rotation, or at least crack the playoff roster and be that first guy that you turn to if one of the lefties are struggling? I think we're pretty solidified on the 3 lefties, although it hasn't been 100% confirmed. But if Nola looks really good in 2-3 starts, then you're having a different conversation. If Walker Buehler looks incredible the rest of the way, it's a different conversation. The thing I'm watching the closest, though, is that bullpen. And can they start to solidify themselves? Can they start to turn things around? Again, 6 straight, 8 of 9, 9 of 11, not going to get it done, allowing earned runs, 22 of the last 30. And in spite of that, they have won. But when the competition ramps up in October, can you continue to be that fortunate? I'm not positive. So the bullpen needs to do some things to figure themselves out. You guys all need to do yourselves a favor and figure out how to get a follow over to your boy at Kyle Fisher 45 on X, on Blue Sky, on Instagram. Make sure you check us out. We're going to be doing a lot of fun things throughout the postseason. We'll have people down at the ballpark every single home game. We're also putting out great content over on Philly Sports Network and MetroPhiladelphia.com. We provide all of these sports for the sports section for the Metro, and as well as PhillySportsNetwork.com. It's all of our stout writing staff. Have some other things in the work. Make sure you follow me at Kyle Fisher 45 to get all the details on those, and give the team overall at Philadelphia SN on X, at Philly Sportsnet on IG, at Philly Sports Network on Blue Sky. Give them all a follow, because we don't just cover the Phillies, we cover everything: Eagles, Flyers, Sixers. So it's a fun time to be a Philly sports fan right now. Fun time to check out Philly Sports Network. Appreciate the love. This is a show of love. Appreciate the togetherness, and really just appreciate all of you hopping in the comments. It was a fun Friday show. Make sure you keep it locked in here every single week to Alley Talk. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you next week.